So I'm like, oh, you're going to die.
This is Kenton Claremont from Train to Hunt, and you're watching the Gritty Bowman.
Is the only thing that's got me anywhere is hard work. That's all I got. I'm not the best shot. I'm not anything. So all I know is to work hard. So I can't really back off of it because that got me to the dance.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep riding it. All I can do is give all I got.
Yeah. Calling you fat and the macronutrient fat.
That's
we
right.
should have called it like oil.
We should have called it awesome.
Yeah. When did you know you really liked Cameron?
We became buddies like immediately.
Like right off the bat?
Friends. Yeah. Well, I had him on my podcast. It's the first time I met him, and he brought me a Hoyt bow. So how could I not love him?
I did.
What did you think when that happened?
I thought I made it.
I love it.
I thought I finally made it.
I am not joking.
I do not talk with my hands. I don't know what you're talking about.
I do not.
With my hands? My hands?
What? I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
On this episode of Gritty Bowman, I visit with friend Josh Nordwick of Mountain Fitness, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. I know many people who exercise regularly, but are plagued with pain in their low back, hips, knees, shoulders, and more. And I have friends and family members who have lived sedentary lives behind computers or behind the wheel of a truck and now suffer with chronic back pain, neck pain, and more. In this podcast, Josh and I talk a little about how to get your body back, how to get your back pain, knee pain, neck pain to go away. It's about proper body movement to build strength and correct bad movement patterns. If your body feels like it's falling apart, learn how to fix it and make it strong again. Josh is a young dude who geeks out on health and fitness. He loves to help people who have lost hope, who don't think they can live an active outdoor lifestyle any longer, who think that age has caught up to them and it's time to cash in their chips and just watch the young hunters get it done without them. I hope you like Josh and you learn something new from this podcast, and maybe, just maybe, some of you will find a way to get your body back. Connect with Josh at joshnordwick.com and on Facebook at Mountain Fit, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. I'm here with Josh Nordwick with Mountain Fit from Missoula, Montana, visiting the Gritty studio today in Oregon City, Oregon. Came to the OC.
Absolutely. It's good to be here, Brian.
Josh connected with me on social media, and we got to talking about some of the stuff that he's involved in, and I thought he'd be a great guest for the Gritty Bowman listeners to learn about various aspects of fitness, getting in shape, getting mountain fit, and Josh has some cool insight. So I wanted to have him on and pick his brain. Josh, tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got to what you're doing, and what it is you're doing.
Definitely. I've been super involved in fitness, sports, athletics my whole life. I always had a little bit of like a geeky approach to it. So, I mean, I was just started high school, 15 years old, and I'm reading everything I can. I'm not, like, instead of being in chemistry class reading chemistry, I got a fitness book in there, and I'm reading that. So it went through that way, and then I would email, like, all my favorite fitness guys on the internet, and, like, once I hit 17, I was, like, finally it was annoying enough that I got a couple guys to kind of be my mentors and kind of guide me in my learning, and that's when, like, it kind of just, like, this learning curve just hit a growth spur when I got, like, great people in my life.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it ever since. I was going to school for engineering for a while, and I was coming back, working the summers at a gym, training a bunch of people. Did that for several years. Just continued to kind of grow my knowledge base, kind of like a little bit of the nerd aspect of fitness is what I'd call it. I was really involved and played college football. I've been hunting since I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. This is actually my first year bow hunting. That's how I've got super into the Gritty Bowman podcast. I've been listening to everything I can. Thankfully, I have a couple brothers and my dad that are super into bow hunting too, and they're kind of like the successful killable every year type of guys.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about it.
That's neat. And you're in Montana, so you're like in prime, hunting mecca.
Oh, yeah.
Of the United States.
Yeah, it's about anywhere you go, any direction.
So, what are you doing now, right now?
I actually just finished up a book. I just got back from Southeast Asia. I was over there for 3 months. I was writing a big book. It's like it's going to be called Mountain Fit, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. And it's a 10-week training program but it's all in this like 75-page book, 80-page book, and it's going to take you through like the whole foundation is what's called the 80-20 rule. So basically the thing is that 20% of your actions will result in 80% of your results.
Yeah.
So it's just focusing on the most important things. So a lot of people, I'd say that's the biggest thing I've learned in like the 7-8 years I've been in the fitness industry is just like focusing on the important stuff.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because Aaron Snyder and I were on the phone yesterday, and he was talking about putting on his weighted vest, and he was a fat kid, and now he's lost a lot of weight, and he's fit, and he's talking about putting on this vest and hiking up these hills in Colorado, getting, just part of his training. He goes and does it with a bunch of guys, and we were talking about his fitness, and we both kind of have different approaches, things we really enjoy when it comes to fitness. Like I do a lot more barbell training and stuff like that, and rope climbing and some of this like CrossFit style stuff. Well, Aaron likes to just put a heavy backpack on and climb a mountain, you know, and at different intervals and different steepness, different terrain. I like to do that too. I just don't have the mountain like right here in my backyard to do that with. But we're talking about the different types of exercise that a guy can do, and then the different levels of fitness a guy can achieve. And we were both talking about how much rest we 40-year-old guys kind of need after a heavy workout, and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And I was like, 80%, I can get my 80% of my fitness from 20% of my effort.
Absolutely.
And that extra 20% of fitness I want to get takes 80% of my effort. And I'm like, we were just talking about this, and I was saying, based on my life and what I got going on in it and other priorities, my performance, and this isn't just a cop-out, it's just a life choice for me, my performance to try to get that extra 20% of my fitness dialed in, requiring 80% of my effort, isn't worth it to me.
Exactly, and that's a specific decision for everybody has to make for themselves,
Yeah, if I was trying to be the next games athlete or something, or compete in something that I had, if that was my life, then yes, I would put it in there. But I am shocked with just 20% of effort, I can get 80% of my fitness. And for so many people, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so this podcast, we've talked about it many times. We've gone into like diet, exercise, and it's doable, it's achievable, it's attainable without severe calorie restriction and, hours and hours of grueling cardio and stuff like that.
You don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
People think that like you want to be involved in fitness, you got to suffer all the time. But the thing is, if you do it right, you're probably going to enjoy it. There's times it's going to be hard, obviously, like anything else worth doing, but you can enjoy it the whole time. And that's like the huge thing for me. It's like making movement something that's fun. And that's like enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that's like the whole movement quality thing we were kind of talking about before we got started as well. It's like if movement feels good to you, you're going to do it a lot more. If movement feels good, you're going to hike a lot more mountains. You're going to go elk hunting a lot. If your back and your knees hurt when you're going out in the mountains, I mean, you still might go. There's a lot of guys that are really mentally tough and are just going to grind through it, but eventually you're going to need surgery that's not going to last,
Yeah.
That if your body fails, then it doesn't matter how mentally tough you are.
Right. Well, I wanted to get into, we had a couple of topics here. One is training efficiently. Accomplishing goals with 3 to 4 hours per week of training. How is that done? Because that's about how many hours I spend training a week, 3 to 4 hours.
I mean, that's all you really need if you're focusing on the right stuff. So
I'd like to do more, and I try to because it's fun. But dang, you can get a lot of fitness in with 3 to 4 hours of training. Yet I see guys and gals that spend, 7, 12 hours a week training.
15 plus, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not anymore. They're way less fit than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like an economy thing, training economy. Like you want to focus on your biggest compound exercises. So the more full body movements you can do, that's why I'm always kind of taken away. I'm not taken away because, the bodybuilder split works for certain goals. Mm-hmm. But if you're a hunter that wants to spend 3 to 4 hours in the gym, if you have a family you have to go home to, if you have a job that you're working 40, 50 hours a week, If you have other commitments, going to the gym 5-6 times a week for an hour to 2 hours at a time, it's going to be hard to do. And a lot of people aren't going to be able to stick with it. So the thing that I see works a lot is like just ditching the bodybuilding split. You're not going to go chest tries, back buys, abs, legs, whatever you're going to do. Instead, just going full body splits. I'm going to do 2 or 3 full body weight routines, you know? So like a split that I really like and that I use in the Mountain Fit book is 2 full body weight days, 1 day of like core and like high intensity intervals type stuff, kind of CrossFit type stuff. And then another day where you're out in the mountains, if you have access and you're hiking with a heavy backpack, like Aaron was talking about, he said.
Yep.
And then as it gets closer, I bump that up the second 5 weeks to twice a week out in the mountains.
Yep.
And then it's just like picking the right level of exercises too. So most guys want to go in and be like, oh, I need a back squat and overhead squat and all this crazy stuff. But it's like, if you don't have the movement down yet, you're just as good off starting with the goblet squat, which is where you're holding the dumbbell right in front of your chest and just squatting. So that's going to force you to do it right, for the most part. So it's like, get the little things right, focus on the progressions, and then over time you'll slowly progress up. And then,
so back to your program, you're basically talking about doing some full body, more complex lifts, like heavy, like weightlifting, basically, twice a week.
Yeah.
2 separate days. Do some kind of interval training, like, high intensity interval, CrossFit, something, HIIT training, whatever.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know what HIIT training is, basically you're going to be taking, I normally used to do body weight exercises. You can get some dumbbells and some weights involved, but like just doing like burpees for maybe 20 seconds, resting for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Doing jumping jacks for 20 seconds, resting for 20, then going through rounds of that.
Okay. So, you like in CrossFit, we call that like a couplet, where you do, or a triplet, where you do like, as many rounds as possible in 5 minutes of 2 exercises, like, or 3 exercises or something, like so many reps, and just cycle through. Or I've done it like high intent, where we've done circuit training, like at some kind of gym. You go to this station, this station, this station, this station as fast as you can, and try to crank some stuff out. So there's that, and then you're saying throw on a pack or something and do some hiking. Yeah,
go some hike. It's not really like you have to have a mountain, because a lot of people don't have a mountain. You know?
Climb stairs.
Yeah, do something.
Go to a stadium. Yep. Whatever you can find.
Be creative. Yeah.
So if you so go back and let's just start from step 1. What do you mean when you say complex movement or full body kind of exercise? And why the weightlifting?
The weightlifting is important because of the strength aspect of it. And I think the biggest thing is like the weightlifting will teach proper movement patterns, which is going to prevent injury over time if you're doing it right. It's the most important thing is weightlifting done right. Because if you're not doing it right, it's not necessarily going to help you. And I know you talk about movement quality a lot too.
Yeah.
So
we could do a whole podcast on movement quality, which I haven't. I've been planning to. I've talked about doing it with a couple of different people. I've kind of talked about my philosophy on fitness, and most important to me is strong connective tissue, strong bones, joints, hips, elbows, and knees, and having that connective tissue and all of that stuff move through the full range of motion, so I can get into all the necessary positions and have strength through that full range of motion. I see guys go and do a squat at the gym with a bar, and they go down to barely just parallel. They don't go all the way down to full range of motion they get a lot of muscle up to the point where they stop, but that muscle below that point doesn't get developed. And you see that a lot with other lifts as well, where people, rather than go through the full range of their shoulders motion when they do an exercise, they just kind of, like if they do a pull-up, they come down about, just to their 90 degree, and they don't go to full extension. And so a lot of those muscle groups don't get worked through their full range.
Yeah, it's really important too, because like, just from like a broader perspective, it's like I have a new niece that I've been watching kind of be born and grow up. She's about a little over 1 year old now, and what you notice is like when they're young, they have complete full range of motion. She's like learning, and like she's learning from her back, and she's getting control of her extremities, and she's learning how to breathe properly, and all these things. There's a certain path the human body takes to learn movement.
Yep.
And when it comes to corrective exercise and movement, and like with my personal clients, I take that same approach to reteach it. Mm-hmm. So like when you have that full range of motion as a young child, you can do any range of motion, your full range of motion, and then you think about when somebody dies, they're stiff as a board, rigor mortis.
Yeah.
So it's like movement is life. When you have as you lose the movement ability, you're losing quality of life too. And I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
So the really big thing, is like hitting that full range of motion, maintaining it, like you said, because your body's meant to last 100 years or so. That's one of the big thing Kelly Starrett talks about in The Supple Leopard. I remember you talking about that in one of the podcasts. Mm-hmm. You have so many joint duty cycles, and if tendons and stuff, everything's grinding in the joint, it's not going to last very long. You're going to end up with a lot of inflammation. You're going to end up with injuries. You're going to have like meniscus tears, joint problems, and that's something you want to avoid.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in pain all the time.
So I have a friend. I'm calling you out, Corey Miller. Corey Miller at Triple X Archery. He was doing some train to hunt events last year, and I remember we were hanging out in his shop, and he was saying, been running a lot of miles, right, and doing a lot of running for this train to hunt event, and he was saying that his knees were bothering him. His knees were really bothering him, and so I've asked. I heard Kelly Starrett years ago on in a seminar he gave. He was explaining how he didn't really know anybody that had could do a proper squat with under load that had knee problems.
Yeah,
like other than catastrophic injury, car accident or some kind of football like abnormal. Like of course you can break traumatic injury. But if you're just talking about wear and tear injury kind of thing, he's like, hey dude, I don't know anybody who can do a proper squat that has knee pain.
Yeah, I mean. So the things that are required to do a proper squat, most people can't do a proper squat.
They can't. Flat out cannot do it.
Very few people can do a proper squat. So that's one of the big things is like in my book, I'm teaching those fundamentals, those basics, and I'm making people I'm setting a depth they have to touch their butt to on a box, and I'm putting them with the weight right there so it keeps them aligned, and I'm teaching them all the fundamentals of midline stability and stuff like that. But back to your question about the knee pain, it's like a lot of the guys that do squats, their knees are coming way out in front of their toes, mm-hmm. and they're completely quad dominant, means their quads are taking over the movement completely, or their IT bands are coming in the side, and that's causing the pain. But it's like, what's the cause of your IT band tightness? It's because your glutes aren't functioning properly.
Right.
You got weak glutes, and they're inhibited, and your hip flexors are tight, and you're getting lower back pain because of it. So it all kind of works together.
I need to do a podcast on that where I actually can film the movements and illustrate some of the stuff that we're talking about. But basically what we're saying is that a lot of the knee pain comes from having overdeveloped muscles in some places and underdeveloped muscles in other places, which puts a lot of strain on that knee. Mm-hmm. Most guys that I know, we were in Louisville, Kentucky at the hotel. I was down there with Snyder and the boys from Mountain Ops, Casey and Jordan, and Sean DeGray with Total Archery Challenge. We're sitting there talking about this very thing, and I asked Casey. Casey was talking about some knee pain, and so I said, let's see your squat. So Casey attempts to do a squat the way he did it in high school, right? Like the way his coach taught him or whatever, right? And he proceeded to do this awful-looking movement that is very quad dominant, where I call it a knee bend.
Yeah.
It's just a flat-out knee bend down to the ground, right? But your butt is not engaged at all. Like the butt, the groin, the adductors, the hips, none of that is firing. The low back isn't even engaged. It's just a straight-up knee exercise. And as that knee bends forward like that, there's all that shear pressure from your quads up here pushing down on that knee that's just leveraged wrong, and you're putting all that pressure on that bone continuously. And what I found is when guys find their butt again and they know how to engage it, and they actually can work their butt and actually do a proper squat, all of a sudden their movement changes. And so when they're climbing hills, running, carrying a pack, they stop having all this knee pain.
Yeah, man, if I could teach people two things, it'd be get your glutes involved in your movement, creating midline stability, and get your breathing right. And those two things, we talk about 80-20, but that's maybe the 10-90 rule. That's the 10% of the things that would be 90% of your results, just because it's...
Well, the biggest thing that I hear is guys say, I have knee pain or low back pain, especially the older they get. And some young guys do. they talk about low back pain all the time. And I herniated my back and had low back pain for years. I played basketball a lot, and I got to a point where I couldn't play at all. Ended up going to physical therapy, and there was a few years there where I was in misery. And it was really tempting to just be like your classic guy and be, well, I just have low back pain, so life is over.
I'm getting old.
I'm getting old. I just can't do this or do that anymore, and I need to take this medication, and I need to like relax, and I just can't do things that get it fired up, and I need to take it easy. And it's like I went the other route and was like, okay, I'm going to exercise as much as I can my low back. I'm going to start strengthening my body. I'm going to start doing squats and deadlifts. And, at first I had to scale all of that because I couldn't even do a sit-up.
Yeah.
And so I started with, a little bit of an assisted sit-up. And then when I could do that effectively for a long time, I started working on other exercises to sort of until I could get somewhat strength and go to the pool a lot. And once I got past that, then I just worked my way over years up to where now, I can clean and jerk 300 pounds. So there's, people, look at those pictures of Aaron Snyder back when he was fat and now he's fit. It's like if people knew what my back was like back then and then what my back is like now, it'd give them some hope.
Yeah.
Right? You can do this. You can change your the body's an amazing thing. But I think a lot of people say, yep, my knee's bad. I have a herniated disc. It's over.
Yeah. I mean, as far as injuries go, I can't tell you exactly why, but I had some pretty messed up posture. Like my pelvis was tilted forward, just lower back pain, knee pain, adductor pain. Like I had every injury you could think of when I was playing football. And that's what kind of got me into the corrective exercise part of things.
Yeah.
Just learning how to fix myself. And it was so I was like scratching my own itch,
Yeah.
I was like, this is the stuff I need to learn. So I'm reading all these books, and I'm noticing I'm getting fixed. And not only am I getting fixed, I'm getting way stronger. I'm getting way faster. I'm getting way more athletic. I mean, I knocked like a full second off my 40-yard dash, add like 12 inches to my vertical jump, and it's like, and what am I doing differently than everybody else? Because I mean, there's guys working just as hard as me.
Yep.
I'm just working smarter.
Yep.
Because I'm putting the actual thought into it and making sure my body functions properly. Because, I mean, the human body is an incredible thing. It can produce insane amounts of force, and it can do it for a long period of time.
Yes. Corey Jacobson with elk101.com. He has a project he's working on, Project Success. And you can just look it up, hashtag Project Success. And part of that is it's basically stuff to help you become a successful elk hunter. Yeah. And it's like material that he's putting together that's going to really help you. Everybody who's ever hunted elk, he's put all these resources together to try to combine the best of the best knowledge on how to be a better elk hunter, be a successful elk hunter. One of the things he asked me to help him with on that project was the fitness part. He's like, I would like to, you to contribute in a way to help elk hunters get conditioned for elk hunting. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. Definitely want to do that. But my take on it is everybody can get conditioned.
Yeah.
Because conditioning is a lot of this activity where you just throw the backpack on and hike the mountain.
Yeah, it's
and
quantity.
When I talked to Casey and he was talking about his knee pain and I had him doing squats, he's like, I don't get this. Like, how is this going to help me hunt better? Because he puts the backpack on. He's like, if I put the backpack on and I hike the mountain 5 miles a day for 4 months, I'm going to be monster fit. And on the surface, you are fit to an extent, but that knee pain doesn't necessarily go away.
Yeah.
If you don't have the muscles developed in other parts of the body through movement, proper movement, quality movement. So I told Corey, I was like, look, let's start with a foundation. I want to tell people, look, get all the movement down, get strength, get strong connective tissue, strong muscular skeletal system, get strong core, strong joints, strong connective tissue, get that in place with full mobility. Once we have that, run up the mountain, do what you want.
Yeah, it's like play the long game, get the foundation first. I think that's really important. You're talking about fit. Like, what are you fit for? Like, fitness is, you're fit for what? are you fit to climb the mountain once? Are you fit to climb the mountain for the next few years? Or are you fit to climb it until you're 70? You were showing me those pictures of that guy you just interviewed, and he's climbing mountains, 72. He's at a recurve bow, you said?
Greg Munther, yes. Longbow. And he's out there killing sheep and goats and elk and coos deer and mule deer. And yeah, and he's 72. And he's out there. He's moving every day.
Yeah. And some guys are lucky.
Yeah.
And they're going to have range of motion, and they're just going to be able to do it for long term. And you see that a lot. Like, I have a grandma that's like 80 years old, and she's always out like sanding decks and stuff.
Often
like that.
I think some of that has to do with a lifetime of eating right,
Absolutely.
getting sleep, living a life that wasn't full of stress,
and not just doing the same thing all the time. Because you'll see with those guys that they're always doing different. They're not just like they didn't just work in a factory with something in front of their hands. They're always out doing a variety of activities.
If you're a guy that spends 8 hours a day at a desk, you're wrecked.
Yeah,
you're screwed because that guy or a truck driver, you so many hours spent with your body in all these 90-degree positions all day long, every day.
Yeah,
you get stuck, man.
Yeah, it's
muscles,
bad.
You lose it. So a guy that is 70 but spent a lifetime walking, moving, lifting things, he's going to be in a much better condition than the guy that had a desk job.
Oh yeah. So like that's what people don't like this. Like we're of a sitting culture. We have this culture where everybody's like so specialized. We're doing the same things, even if you're not sitting. If you're doing the same kind of labor over and over again, you're in the same postures, and those postures become defaults.
Yeah,
and that's like when you get a default. Like I was gonna do some examples, but we'll just hold off on those. So basically, people's shoulders start rounding over because they're typing all the time. They get like really big either extension in their lower back, where like they have a big arch where it's coming out like that, or they're flexed and their butt's kind of tucked under them.
Yep.
And either way, with either of those things, your glutes kind of just stop working, your pelvic floor stops working, your lower core stops working, and then you lose your ability to squat.
When I tell people, like Kelly Starrett did a presentation for Google, I think. It's on the internet if you look it up, but it's Kelly Starrett. He's teaching you how to sit properly. If you're going to sit, there's actually a way to sit and sit right. And he talks about how sitting in a desk is killing you, destroying your body. And one of the things he talked about was having your glutes, your butt engaged while you're sitting down.
Yeah.
Well, who does that?
Nobody.
Who flexes their butt while they're sitting there? And I remember when I first started doing it, I was like, I could flex my butt for like a minute or more, and then I was too tired, and you'd slouch back into the seat, right? And you'd lose that pelvic floor, and everything would fall apart, and your low back and everything just curls, and you're not. And so once I started doing that, like when I drive, and I'll drive like an 8-hour trip, my butt's engaged the whole time. Just slightly, just enough to hold everything in position. And those little tiny changes, I don't think people realize how impactful they are.
And the small things are the big things when you look into it. It's like making those small changes. I mean, if you think about what is really meant to stabilize your spine, it's like the two biggest muscle groups are your deep core and your glutes.
What's your deep core?
Your deep core would be like your transverse abdominis, your internal obliques, your external obliques, kind of. People always train the six pack, which is like the rectus abdominis muscle group. And I mean, that's going to be there either way. It's like rounding the spine is going to put a lot of stress on your spine. So like, for example, like in the mountain foot book, we don't really do any spinal flexion, which is like when you're rounding your back, and we're not really on the ground very often. Yeah. So when we're on the ground, we're probably doing like planks, or we're doing something like dead bug, where we're really learning how to breathe and like activate the diaphragm, another part of your deep core. We're trying to get that diaphragm to open up and come down. Yeah. And like, so as we were integrating our ab function with our breathing.
We were just talking about this a little bit too at the CrossFit gym the other day. Like a lot of these CrossFit athletes have like what we call like an ab shell. Like the abs come out and come down, and the CrossFit athlete, they have like small pecs, like the stomach muscles almost stick out for the pecs too. Yeah. And it's funny, like when you look at a bodybuilder and then you look at like more of a functional athlete, the bodies don't look the same.
No.
I heard one of the bodybuilders talking the other day, and he's like, I'd love to do CrossFit, but then I would develop all these muscles right here on the side that come down here in the front, and all those thick muscles will take away from my V shape that I need to win the bodybuilding competition.
Yeah, I mean, and then it sucks, because I mean, that's your foundation too. It's like, and they're training aesthetics, they're training form over function.
But people put this, now they have kind of this weird idea on what a body should look like when it's fit.
Yeah.
But really, this functional athlete, that's what it should look like. and you're more blocky, and you have these muscles that fill out the sides that, you know, are, and that's one thing about, like, you know, to clean and jerk like 300 pounds at 190 pounds, mostly where my strength is in my hip and my cores, like my core area.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it takes to get the bar. My back has big muscles in it.
Yeah.
The front, not so many muscles, right? It's like they don't actually translate into the functional fitness the same way.
Yeah, so it's like your pecs, I mean, they're all cool. They look good on magazine covers and stuff, and the girls like them and all, but what do they really do? You know, it's like when you're bench pressing, yeah, they're turned on, but it's still like more of a tricep dominant movement if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And like the pec flies and you get the pecs tight, they get big and strong and they start pulling your shoulders forward. Then you end up with like, a lot of guys have what's called kyphosis, which means your upper back's rounded. And that we were talking about the sheer stress on your knee. The same thing happens at each spinal joint too. So it's like, say we got a spine here and like it's supposed to sit like this, and now your upper back's rounded. So now the disc is pushing out.
Yep.
The spine ends up with a lot of sheer stress on it.
Yep.
When guys getting like that rounded, the spinal alignment's out of whack. You know, it's like it's supposed to be a nice smooth curve, and the lower back's gonna be a little bit of an arch, and the upper back's gonna be a little bit rounded. But a lot of people get excessive curvature, so they have this huge arch in their lower back and this big rounding in the upper back. And like I said, it's like you got one vertebrae here, one vertebrae here, and they start either going like this, and they're forcing the disc out that way, or they're forcing the disc in.
Yeah.
And this is actually like, if I could go back in time a little bit, this is how I actually got involved, like with hunters in general. It was by helping my dad. My dad, ever since I was a kid, he'd always had like low back pain, upper back pain, and like he just lifted his whole life too. It wasn't like he was this guy that was not fit. He worked labor all the time, and he'd come home and he'd lift weights.
Yep.
Whole life. And then over time his back got worse and worse. His posture, his alignment got out of whack, and then over time he had like one traumatic injury, which was just rolling over in bed awkwardly, and a disc bulged out, and he was in bed for a month.
Yeah.
So, and this is like...
It's sad.
Yeah.
It really is, because people are out there trying to be fit or take care of themselves, a lot of them, and they're messed up.
Mm-hmm. It's really common, and it's just the focus is on the wrong things. And that's a huge part that I'm so passionate about, helping people understand like the foundation first, then all that cool quality stuff.
Well, when you're talking about that back, you know, and a guy gets rounded shoulders like this, and he's kind of stuck that way, and he's got this excessive curvature in other places, and like you said, the joints are all. People kind of think that the bones are all like fixed and in place, and then the muscles are on that, and it's the opposite. The muscles shape the bones. So if you don't have the right muscles and they're not all equal in how they're supposed to be, if you were like a human, 10,000 years ago, you would move your body in all these different ways, roll, wrestle, climb, hunt, fish, carry stuff, build things, move heavy objects. You would have this full range of motion kind of activity throughout your life until you got, killed by something or, right? And so all of that movement builds muscle, keeps your muscles all where they're supposed to be, which keeps those bones and the discs and the knees and all that stuff in the right position.
Yeah.
Well, in today's society, which is completely unnatural compared to how we were back where we have come from.
And how we're designed to work.
How we're designed to move. You get these weird things after 10, 20, 30 years of doing certain activities. And I'll talk to people where I'm like, when was the last time you squat? Like, and like in Japan, when I lived in Japan for a while, they squat every day to take a dump.
I was just going to say that's what I thought of. I was like, I just got back from Thailand. I was like, they don't have
these toilets. Right. They squat to take a dump, and it's like normal. And so they have this range of motion and this mobility just because of how they poop every day from the time they're little kids, right? We come over here and we throw these Western-style toilets in place, and you never squat or engage those muscles anymore, ever. We sit in chairs everywhere. We never sit on the floor. We don't do Indian style. We don't get on our knees. In fact, most people never get below a sitting position in using their body for years. And then they're surprised when they have low back pain and they have, neck pain and shoulder pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a huge deal. They actually have, it's a huge part of like indigestion. If your digestive system's not working properly, if you can't take a crap without being in pain all the time, the big part of it is you're not functioning right. You're supposed to be down in like a full squat position when you're taking that. A lot of muscles get turned on, a lot get turned off in that position. One thing that's actually, it's called the Squatty Potty. You get, like,
I've seen that,
the
the
little
Squatty
feet,
Potty.
And like, I don't have one, but like, I noticed like in Thailand, like that's a huge thing, man. People are working, they're doing tile, they're down there in a full squat position.
Yep.
Guys here are on their knees.
Exactly. I do the same thing. Like, I'm in a full squat almost all the time. When I'm cleaning the floor or getting in cabinets, and I'll be work with other guys, and they'll be like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I just sit like this all the time.
Yeah, this is what I do.
And I remember when I was in Japan for the first time, all these guys were sitting in a circle, squatting outside like the 7-Eleven, smoking cigarettes and hanging out. And they're all squatted like that. And they're telling stories and hanging out, and they will squat like that for 2 or 3 hours. I remember the first time I got there, I'm like up on my toes trying to squat. My legs are burning. Couldn't put my heels on the ground. I couldn't be relaxed in that position. And I'm like 19 years old, and I don't have the mobility. I had one of the high school guys who's a really great athlete come over to my house to train here in my basement to learn some movements and mechanics and to get stronger. We went through a series of things. Just show me your deadlift, show me your squat, show me your overhead press. Can you do a handstand push-up? Just some kind of base, show me your push-up. The movement patterns were horrendous. Yet he's one of the fastest, quickest, highest jumping, best football athletes out there. Yet you put a bar on his shoulder and have him do a squat, and he could hardly squat, 80 pounds.
The body's crazy, man. Like, it's built to survive, and it's built to perform. It's built for quantity. It's like, so it's totally willing to sacrifice quality for quantity. And that's how the body's going to do it. And that's why people are so good at like, I got this terrible knee pain, but I can just suck it up and work through it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like you can get rid of that knee pain and perform even better. And that's the big thing people don't get. And I'm sure people like listen to this big, well, what do I do?
Well, that's the next thing, I guess. We've kind of made the case for it. So like with your dad, after years and years and years, his spine's now jacked up. His back is having problems. His shoulders are my dad's shoulders are bad.
Yep,
they're like kind of stuck like this all the time. And he can't, I'm like, do some tests, some basic mobility with him. And it's like, whoa, you've lost most of your shoulder's range of motion.
Yeah.
And so when he turns his head, instead of turning his head like this, his whole upper shoulders and everything moves with it. Like the neck doesn't rotate. And he'll be like, hey, what's up, son? And it's like, Dad, you should be able to just turn your head,
Yeah.
But there's stuff that's all bound up. So how does a guy get that back?
It takes time. It's going to take patience, absolutely, and it's going to take some work. But it's just finding the muscles that are tight, releasing that tightness, and then it's not just that, because people think like, okay, well, I just stretch and I release the tightness. First off, there's a lot more to releasing tightness than stretching. The second thing is that you have to reprogram the nervous system too. So you have to relearn that movement pattern. So for example, like with him, the biggest thing was his upper back. So we did like a lot of foam rolling, a lot of tissue release on the pecs and the biceps, and the lats coming up were really tight too. And at the same time, we were doing a lot of strengthening work on the upper back, the scapular stabilizers, like the lower traps were a huge one. Rhomboids were really big. So it's, instead of being here, so we're loosening it up. If you just loosen it up, then just go along with whatever you're going to do, your body's going to go back to normal every time. Mm-hmm. So it's the big thing is then we're getting them in like wall side positions where we're strengthening his upper back. And thankfully, like my dad he was awesome to work with because he was just naturally like the hardest working guy I've like ever been around. So he was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do this every day, whatever you tell me to do until it's better. And that's what he did. And that was a couple years ago, and now he's stronger than me. And he's got like perfect posture, and he's like, now he's actually he's like, oh, I'm going to get lean too. So now he's got like abs coming out. He's like 200 pounds, and he's just like shorter than me, 200 pounds. I don't know, it's awesome. It made me so happy to see like the possibilities. And I know that there's so many people out there that are just like him.
Yeah.
He's not like an exclusive type of person that's like in back pain. It doesn't matter. Like people work their ass off, people work hard, and it doesn't pay off if they're not doing it right.
Well, so much of the culture today is pushing these, like you go to Men's Health magazine or, not to knock on, but you see some of these like global fitness magazines, and what you see to me is like, how to get stronger in X many days, and, how to get better abs and your chest. And it's like, it's kind of this aesthetic focused. They're not really addressing real fitness.
Yeah. Form always, this is like an age-old saying, and it's because it's true. It's form follows function. You know, you train your body to function properly, and it's going to take a good form. I mean, look at Brian's body. Brian does CrossFit. Brian's body functions properly, and it looks good.
Yeah.
The same thing happens, and you can tell, like, if somebody functions properly, if somebody can clean and jerk 300 pounds at 190 pounds, their body's going to look good.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't worry about how you look either. Like, focus on performance goals.
Yeah.
My goal was, okay, I want to be able to squat X pounds for my body weight.
Yeah.
If I can just get there, and I didn't worry about whether I was doing leg extensions, you know, and whether my quads were developed, you know, I was like, let's just get some performance goals. And it can be like just as much as I want to do a nice, clean, strict pull-up, you know, for five pull-ups, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, you're like, okay, I got that. Now I want to do this. And push-ups. I want to do X amount of push-ups. And focus on the performance, not on how much do I weigh, how big are my biceps, and what's my inches around my waist. And those things are not how you measure success. Focus on performance goals.
Yeah. I mean, that's very important. Like you said, that's a really good idea. But like, there's a lot of people that are just like super overweight, like even like to the level of obese, and like those are really good standards for them because that's a lot of the time that's what's causing their pain in the first place. So that weight loss, fat loss goals are big. But I'd say even like in front of performance is just like movement capability, like movement capacity, just to get to that bottom of that squat first off, and then you go like, then I want to get whatever at this amount of weight times my body weight for my squat. So the three things, like going back to the 80-20 rule that we talked about, the 20-80 rule.
Yep.
I took, cause like when I go through like a personal client, I have a ton of assessments, a ton of tests, but I'm not going to get into that obviously here. But so for the book I just took, I was like, here's the three things that if people could do these, I'm fairly confident just about all of them will be fine with this program. So can somebody activate their diaphragm properly when they breathe? Are somebody's shoulders rounded forward? Can they get complete overhead flexion, which is something that I struggle with even? And then is their pelvis in a neutral position? So in the book, I have videos of this is how you can assess yourself. So self-assessment videos. So we go through breathing, pelvis orientation, and shoulder flexibility. And once people have all three of those things, I think that's your whole core is there. I mean, it's not that you're going to be perfect, but you're probably not going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then, like, if they do fail those tests, it's like, here's how you can fix it. And there's all of the corrective exercise videos with them. Yeah. Which is super important. And then, I mean, you can go as far as you want into that, but.
So what are some of I think it's interesting that you have people go to in the beginning there, it's like two days in the gym doing some heavy loads, complex movements, and then it's 1 day of kind of circuit training type, high intensity training, interval stuff, and then you've got your next one, which is climbing a mountain with a heavy load.
Yeah, the sport specific one. Yeah.
Right. So you have these these exercises, but within that, basically you're saying that 2 days of that work per week is focused on weights.
Yeah. And a lot of guys, like there's a pretty big debate, like you'll see on Facebook about guys being like, oh, you don't need to be fit, or, oh yeah, this is the most important thing for bow hunting. And I mean, and it can be your limiting factor, some people's limiting factor. But I think the biggest thing is not that you necessarily have to be in great shape. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you don't have to be in great shape to go kill an elk. I think we have plenty of examples against that. But if you want to go out and pack an elk out on your back and not be completely miserable, you want to have a decent level of conditioning and feel good. You want your body performing properly.
Yeah, when I look back on myself, there were years where back when I played basketball multiple days a week, I did triathlons, I did tons of running, biking, swimming, and all of that. I was wrecked after packing an elk out, and I was in my late 20s, getting in my 30s, early 30s, and we were looking at pack animals because it's just so demanding and so brutal. With the fitness that I have today and the strength that I have today, that's not an issue at all. Like, I don't need to have a pack animal. Yeah. I'm not tired carrying a load. I don't have back and joint pain after carrying heavy loads out of the wilderness. I wake up the next day and can do it again. It's not a thing. It used to be, now I need a month to recover. You know?
But now you're fit for the task.
Yeah. But lifting weights, I get a lot of people, especially like if you're talking about, things like complex full body movements, like a squat type of movement, whether it's a goblet squat or a front squat or a back squat or a barbell squat, or those movements. I get so many people are so negative on those.
Yeah.
Like most guys I talk to are like, they want to do, it's not something that they see the vision for. But for me, it's like that opened the door for all the fitness I have today. When I discovered the barbell and a proper squat and a proper deadlift and a proper overhead press, putting weight over my head, it was like the amount of core stabilization and stuff that I had to develop and shoulder mobility. It was eye-opening to me the first time I tried to do some of these movements, realizing I can't do them.
Yeah.
Because I can't even get in the positions to do them.
And if you manage to kind of make yourself get in those positions, they hurt. I mean, they hurt. All those things hurt most people.
I do an overhead squat today, and I've been working on it for years. I don't feel powerful in that position.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm barely holding it together.
Yeah.
And other movements I feel powerful in, like a squat clean or something. It's like I have all the mobility and strength I need. Now it's just a matter of working the timing and technique and things like that. But it took a long time to get there.
Yeah, so the big thing that I think everybody should notice and know this right away is for every given compound movement, like a squat, for example, there's loads of progressions and regressions. So, I mean, the first thing you should be doing is nailing the technique with perfect form body weight. And that's going to be kind of the corrective exercise thing for some people. And some people will just get it right away. And then you're going to move up to maybe like a goblet squat. And then once you nail the goblet squat, and you can use quite a bit of weight with the goblet squat, you're running out of dumbbells, you can move to the front squat. And then you can move to the back squat. And then you can move to the box squat. And then you can move to the overhead squat. And then you can start getting the complex stuff like snatches and stuff like that.
Right.
But a lot of people want to hop into snatches right away too. And it's like...
Well, it's sort of like we were in the gym the other day, and we were doing squat cleans. And the coach is like, okay, how many of you can hold the bar in the rack position off your shoulders, elbows up, and as you squat, actually keep your elbows up, or do they all dip down into your back rolls? And half the gym could keep the position. Half of them don't have the mobility or the strength to do that. Yeah. And so the other half do a goblet squat instead.
Exactly.
They hold that there, and now they can come down. Or when we do a squat clean, they're like, okay, we're going to do it with dumbbells, because you can...
Yeah, there's more range of motion. It's easier to control.
Yep. So you can scale these movements so you can develop it. But why does it work? Because that's the one thing I'm telling people is, look, lifting weights makes you flexible as hell.
Yeah.
It makes you strong and flexible as hell. Like, people are like, I need to go do yoga, which I have nothing against yoga, and I like yoga. Yeah. But I'm one of those people where I can stretch. Like, in fact, we were doing the rack position with the bar, and I was putting the bar on my shoulder, and I was trying to stretch using like an empty bar without any weight on it. And then as I got the bar there and I go down in my squat, nothing stays in place. And I wish I was more loose and limber, but I'm freaking tight as a rubber band, and so you put 100 pounds on the bar, 200 pounds on the bar, and then have me squat, and it's like, yeah, I can hold all these positions.
Yeah.
And I'm tight. I need weight to move my ligaments, tendons, my joints, my muscles into positions. And I heard Kelly Starrett talk about this once. He's like, dude, you sit there and you stretch and you touch your toes. He's like, great, good on you. He's like, you just squatted 400 pounds too. Which put more stretch on your muscle than the static stretch to your toes?
Yeah. Or
the 400 pounds that's like pulling? That's a lot of weight, dude, pulling on your muscle. That changes the shape of muscle.
Absolutely.
Static stretching, the yoga kind of thing, it doesn't change the muscle as quickly. It never did for me.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about the releasing tension, and then as far as weights too. Because like in a Romanian deadlift, if anybody knows what that is, basically you're just bending at the hip. Instead of you have very little knee bend and you're just keeping your back straight and kind of pushing your hips backward. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a huge static hamstring stretcher. That's one of the things that I can bring my knees to my head to my knees when I in that bent over hamstring stretch now, because and that's the thing that got me there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like sitting there stretching my hamstrings. Like at one point when I started, I could get to like right there.
Yeah.
And now it's like I can reach down and grab my heels if I want to.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you can kind of develop that range of motion once you have like the foundation, and then you start working into your progressions, regressions, and then it's like, and you're developing these full ranges too. So you're strong at the bottom range. You know, you're strong at the bottom of that squat. Most people can maybe get there, but if they're weak there and they can't breathe and they can't even shut up, they don't really have that range of motion. Just because you can get there, if you can't breathe there, you don't really have that range of motion.
Yeah. That's how I am with an overhead squat. But then you give me like a back squat and I do a pause squat, Yeah. 380. I can sit there at the bottom of that squat for, I don't know, count of 5 seconds or whatever, and then just stand up.
Yeah. I saw you moving at the hips too. I mean, your hips are really, I don't think your hips are even tight. I think you're a little tight in the shoulders.
Thoracic, spine, and upper shoulder, totally.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like I try to work on it, but it just, and my dad's the same way.
It takes time too, man. I mean, this is kind of beyond the scope of this, but like there's so many things that relate to like the muscular tension. It's like, it's any kind of stress, physical stress, work stress, emotional stress.
I think too, I spent years at a computer like this.
Same.
And this is just
movement.
My shoulders and stuff are just still kind of recovering from a lifetime of that.
That's what I've been battling too. It's like writing the book and doing like all the Facebook stuff, all the website stuff. It's like I'm at a computer 5-6 hours a day.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to defeat that. So like I have like my own stuff that every 15 minutes, like I'll never stay anywhere for more than like 2 hours. So like I'll go stretch or do something else, go for a walk. But still, it's still a constant battle. If you're going to be in that position all the time, you need to have like a corrective exercise program associated with that to kind of prevent you from getting owned by it. Becoming that typer, you know?
And I'll submit this to like those that are out there listening. How many of you guys have actually gone hunting for a week and come back going, gosh, my knee and back pain's gone?
Yeah.
You go hunting for 2 weeks and all of a sudden you're like, gosh, all that pain I had, it's gone all of a sudden. And you'd think you'd have more pain because of all the physical exertion and all the movement. Yet the opposite is true. You come back and all that neck knot that you had where you couldn't move your head for a while, gone. Yeah. It's like, and it's movement, dude.
Yeah, your body's designed to move. And I think it's like the people that are like have like little things wrong with them, they go out and for a while and like, oh, I feel way better. But the people that have the big things that like really need the corrective exercise, they're not going to be like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just kind of wondering what it is that, so in your book, you'll kind of describe those exercises you think people should start with based on their mobility, based on their strength, where they're at right now.
Yeah.
So when they go into the gym, though, let's say they're kind of at a basic level where they've got good movement. What are like for you? What are those? If you're working at that, 20% of effort for 80% of return. What are the lifts you're doing?
So it's going to kind of move on a continuum. We're going to start, depending on how much time you have, we're going to start with your big compound. So we're going to start with some kind of like a squat movement or a deadlift variation. We're probably you're not going to deadlift in the program. We might do like a Romanian deadlift. Mm-hmm. And then we'll kind of move on to like maybe some kind of a pull down or a pull up, depending on where people are at. And they're all these big, just compound movements. And then I throw in some arms at the end of one day of the week. It's like everybody likes the arms, and like they're optional, but. So, and everything's connected. The cool part about this is everything's connected to an app. So it'll all be on your phone. Every single exercise will have a video of me doing it and like with like 4 or 5 cues to think about when you're doing it.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, all the big movements. Let me think about what's in the program. Like lots of step ups, lots of single leg, like reverse lunges, squats. A lot of stuff are just with dumbbells for now. And then they kind of like, there's a 5-week phase and then there's another 5 weeks after. So the first 5 weeks is like, progression. I have numbers for all my progressions, so it'd be like early progressions like goblet squats, and then we'd move to a front squat the next phase. Mm-hmm. You'd be doing like an RDL, then you move to maybe a single leg RDL. So it's just all learning. Everything's based on progressions, starting out pretty light. And if you're a super advanced athlete, this program is, I mean, it probably would still help you just because like all the relearning your base stuff is always, it's always great to revisit the fundamentals. But this is really just for the guys that are like, either have been lifting for a while and like want to get a little bit better result or just getting into it. They're pretty new to it. And they don't have like bad pain where they're in pain all the time, but they might have some nagging pain that's kind of bothering them every once in a while.
It's real interesting because when I did Project Success with Corey and he's still working on the material, it's kind of the same. My workout routine is just like what you're describing. So I throw out there some full body complex lifts like twice a week.
Yeah.
Some interval training like once a week where you do some kind of, CrossFit-esque or high intensity interval thing. And then a heavy backpack hiking day, like in the mountains. And that's pretty much the exact program that I wrote for Corey.
The splits you do, man, it's like, there's obviously some variety when you get into that, but it's like the split, what you really need to be a good bow hunter, it's those things.
Well, what's interesting is that you're coming from a completely, like, we don't know each other. We didn't know each other until last week.
Yeah.
Right? And yet you've written this book and come to this place through experience that tells you, and through helping other people and training other people, that has told you that, hey, this works. This is a foundation. This is where it's really at, which is pretty contrary to a lot of the other stuff that you'll see and read out there. And me, from my experience, I'm coming at it with, discovering pretty much the same thing. Like, we're in total alignment with our thoughts and stuff on fitness. And I think it's really cool to see that same, you got there independent. I didn't influence you. You didn't influence me. Yet
parallel thinking.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I'm excited to see your book and to see your app and all that stuff that go. I mean, one of the areas I wish I worked on more, and I'd like your opinion on this, because it's an area where I think could have huge results, but I'm so lazy about, and that is gymnastics. So Coach Sommers, he's been on like the Tim Ferriss podcast. He's been on Rob Wolf, Paleo Solution. He's been on Barbell Shrugged. He's been on a lot of different fitness type podcasts, and he has gymnastics bodies. You can sit there and I've actually purchased his intro level gymnastics and then done the exercises, and they're freaking tedious and difficult and take you would think like just on the ground, just doing this exercise, would be like no problem. It's hard as hell, and it's no fun, and you do so many reps. So with the gymnastic stuff, so I've done it for a while, and I can definitely see these gains, but they're so slow. Like, the return takes forever to be able to. Some static holds. Yeah. We were doing some static holds on the pull-up bar the other day, where you just pull up and you just hold yourself there. That's freaking torture.
Like, isometric strength is really important, man.
It is hard, and it's not my strength. Like, dynamic movement, dude, I'm a killer. Anything that's static hold, I struggle with.
Yeah. So the question I have for you, are you pursuing that because you're scratching your own itch, or do you think it'll make you more fit for your daily life, or what are you looking to get out of it?
I was pursuing it because I want to age well.
Yeah.
I want to have. There is a part of me that likes the rings a lot and enjoys doing work on the rings, and I want to graduate to something. I also like handstand walking, handstand push-ups. I like that kind of work as well. So as I get into that, I want to get better at it. I realize that, for example, I'm doing muscle ups, and according to Coach Sommer, I really shouldn't be, because I don't have the foundation for it. So I can crank out, 7, 10 muscle ups in a row and get down and then do them again and do them again. And he's like, that's great, but can you do this? And there's a basic movement at the top where you hold and do some stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, if you can't do that, you're an injury waiting to happen. Well, that's an eye-opener, right? And you start to go, okay, well, I'm going to master that. Well, then you work on his movement, he says. That's like years in the making. So I can skip ahead and just do a muscle-up improperly, according to
That's interesting, because that's like a lot of the beef that like a lot of like gymnastics guys and Olympic lifters have with CrossFit, is like they have like all these things that, like, this is how you're going to progress up to it so you don't end up hurt. And so like you can make sure it's right. And then like a lot of guys in CrossFit will hop in and be like, okay, I'm going to start doing snatches for as many reps as possible in this amount of time. And it's like, and that's why like the big, like a lot of guys are getting better about it. There's some really good coaches that don't obviously do all that stuff.
Each CrossFit gym basically it's as good as the coach that owns it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So Make sure you check out your CrossFit coaches before you go join a CrossFit
Some
gym.
are a freaking joke because it's not really a franchise; it's an affiliate.
Yeah, and it's really easy to certify through too.
Yeah.
So it's like you can do it like in a weekend. You can become a CrossFit coach.
Yeah. So I know some guys who can crush some workouts pretty fast. They look horrible doing it. Like I'm like every time they lift the barbell, every time they do their.
He's waiting for the snap.
Whoa, dude, you are jacking your body over. So yeah, that can happen, and depending on which gym you're in, it's only as good as the coaching in the gym.
Absolutely.
Like our coach is like, hey, you're not doing it. You know, there's certain tests that people have to go through before in our beginning of our workouts, where he's like, okay, everybody, who can do this? And you evaluates every person in a circle, and he's like, and it's just, he makes it clear, like, hey, we're not trying to single you out or make you feel dumb because you can't do it, or it's just reality.
We're
protecting you.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this process where we do this test, and then you do this exercise, and you people do this one, and you people do this one, so you can progress to where you can do that eventually. But my whole thing with the gymnastics was simply there's some itch there, but it quickly died when I found out how much work was involved.
Yeah, man, there's a discipline. That's what they call it, discipline.
It comes to like, he's like, yeah, you're going to need to give an hour a day for the next 3 years so that you can then do this basic plank movement, or planche or whatever. And it's like, an hour a day for 3 years. Plus I want to do my other fitness, right? And it's like, but the gains he describes are pretty cool, some of that strength and mobility that comes from that. Especially you see these older guys like 60, 70 years old doing some gymnastic holds that are amazing. And you're like, wow, that guy aged well. You know, that guy has had very few injuries his whole life. And so, so gymnastics, where are you at on that? It's
I incorporate some gymnastics movements, some basic gymnastic stuff, but I don't train people in gymnastics. I've never done it, so I'd be a little out of my depth to talk about progressions of gymnastics and stuff like that. But like I said, a lot of my programs incorporate lots of yoga moves, lots of gymnastic moves. It's all this foundation, and we're in a really cool era of fitness, I think, right now. Where it's going is all these different disciplines are getting pulled down and are coming together.
Yeah.
Which is very cool because it's everything has their own unique ability to offer. It's kind of like what's happening with martial arts and MMA.
Yes.
Everybody has its own unique thing to offer, and it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Which is we're just in a cool time.
I completely agree. I think for this is kind of more of an advanced fitness topic because I wouldn't even be interested in it if I hadn't mastered some of these other levels of fitness already. So now I'm kind of like, well, what's the next thing? So anyway, I think for most people though, I've been doing this for years now, 5 years maybe. And so, most people aren't doing that. They've been spending a lot of time, doing train to hunt, preparing for train to hunt by just running a lot.
Yeah. That's the thing in my program. I don't know how your program was, but, mine didn't have any jogging in it, any running. I didn't have anybody go jog, anybody go run. It's not that stuff's terrible. It's if you don't have a good balance, you don't function, if you're not moving properly, you're going to have a lot of repetitive stress on knees and joints and stuff like that. If you're moving awesome and you're doing cross training, go for it. Go jog. But if you're not, you're kind of an injury waiting to happen.
Right. I don't think running is, running, swimming, it's not as beneficial as people think it is.
No.
Until you have these foundations we're talking about.
Yeah. Always build the foundation, and then you can do a lot of cool stuff. I'm getting really into kickboxing and martial arts now because I had the same question as you. You went to gymnastics. Mm-hmm. I got into kind of the kickboxing route, and it's crazy just to see once you have the foundation, there's that general physical preparedness is what they call it in the old Soviet Union when they were training everybody and killing the Olympics. And on top of that, they have this specific physical preparedness. Yeah. So once you have that GPP, it's all the focus is on until you reach a certain age over there when they were training people. Then whatever sport you get into, you're just going to get good at it quick. Right. Your learning curve is going to be rapid. Yeah. So it's once you have that base, whatever you want to do. Yeah. If I wanted to go start running now, I'm more of a sprinter than a jogger, but I'm feeling I could probably get into it pretty quickly, and you could probably do the same if you wanted to. Yeah.
So we kind of bounced around a little bit, but we've covered a little bit about what you like for a training program. We talked about quality of movement, but there's a lot of topics that we also wanted to cover, in more detail, and that you've got some ideas on. So we're gonna wrap this podcast up, and we'll have Josh back, and we'll do another podcast around some other areas of fitness, like we talked about diet. Yeah. People seem to struggle a lot with that, thinking that they're on the right path when they're really not.
Yeah. What is healthy eating? What's not?
Yeah, and I'd say that's an area where some eyes are being opened for a lot of people. I know it was eye-opening for me when I discovered a better way to eat, a more natural way to eat. So some other things, let's see, I wrote some notes down. You talked about training the nervous system to handle buck fever.
I think that's gonna be a huge one.
And extreme cold conditions, which I'm very curious on because my brother's been doing the Wim Hof thing for a while.
Wim Hof's awesome.
And hearing him talk about that and the breathing and all of that, it's fascinating. And I've listened to like Mark Devine at Seal Fit talk about breathing, and I've heard some guys talk about combat breathing and handling, intense situations.
Yeah, there's a lot
through
to
proper
it.
breathing.
There's a lot to it. Like the Wim Hof is basically what he was showing was you could pretty much control his autonomic nervous system, which autonomic means automatic.
Yeah.
So it's not all the medical books will tell you it's automatic, but no, you can take control of it. And he's proving it pretty much.
Which is blowing my mind.
Mine too. I've been doing it a lot.
And I think that I'm not sure how that's going to be done, but anyway, those are some more topics we wanted to get into. So we'll have Josh back, and hopefully you guys got a lot from this. Josh, where can people find you?
My website is joshnordwick.com.
Nordwick, and you spell it Nordwick.
Yep. Josh Nordwick, Nordwick.com. That'll link you to everything. I have a big group on Facebook that's completely free to join. I give away a ton of free stuff on there. The group's called Mountain Fit, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. Been open for about a month. There's about 500 members. It's growing rapidly.
Okay.
The book's coming out. It'll be out probably June 6th.
How do people get the book?
The book will be for sale on my website. I have a pre-sale list that's opening up. It's a free sheet on energy balance. It'll be like how to gain, lose weight, how to gain muscle, lose fat. I also have like a free ebook on my website. It's called The 26 Common Gym Mistakes and How to Fix Them. And that's like a bunch of the top fitness experts all kind of pulled together a few tips, and I turned it into a book.
Sweet.
That's free. You can get it on my website too.
Okay.
You just put your email in.
Instagram?
Instagram, I'm on there, Josh Nordwick. It's not my focus.
Okay.
So I think the last picture I posted was 3 months ago when I was in Cambodia.
You and I are about the same. I go through these really good spells after Aaron Snyder busts my chops. Like, come on, dude. You've disappeared, and then I do really well, and then I kind of like slack off, and I like to share things here and there, but it takes a little more effort, and I'm so busy like editing podcasts and recording and doing this core work that it's hard for me to like keep social media. The more I post, the more interaction I get, and I feel overwhelmed by trying to respond. I literally have 100. You're lucky I read your message. I mean, seriously, like there's hundreds of messages that come through. I don't get to them all.
Yeah, you get busy, man. And it's like, if you want to be focused, if you want to put out good quality information, you got to be focused. That's why I was like, oh, I could get on Facebook, and I could get on Snapchat, I could get on Instagram, I could do all these things. But it's like, or I could just make a group on Facebook and put out quality information every single day.
Yeah.
And then like do a blog post every once in a while.
Yeah. Trying to do it all. I still want to have a better presence there. But so Instagram's not your thing, but the Facebook group is there, and it's Mountain Fit, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. Mountain Fit, the Hunter's Fitness Solution. That's an awesome place for free information. And get on my website and subscribe to my newsletter. Okay. Lots of free stuff. Sweet. We'll have Josh back. Thanks, guys. Stay gritty. Okay, gritty friends. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram, and take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops, You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter, or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Corey Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. If you haven't heard, we're doing a huge gear giveaway to try and grow and expand the gritty community on Facebook and Instagram. I asked a bunch of friends to pitch in on this gear giveaway, and they all came through with some awesome stuff. Our friends at Kifaru, Rockslide, First Light, Phelps Game Calls, One Shot Gear, Mountain Ops, Triple X Archery, Blacktail Outdoors, and Is It September Yet are pitching in some sweet gear for the giveaway. We'll announce all the details in the next few weeks. All you have to do to be entered to win is like our Gritty Bowman Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.